The first thing that comes to mind is that I've been born and raised DC native pretty much my entire life. I've been able to see like the whole scene kind of come together. I think like when it really started blossoming was about, I'd probably say like around like 2008, 2009, around the time when Wally actually started getting signed. So I saw a lot of those things, and I had like a lot of friends who were saying, hey, just come on and be a part of this event. I'm having this show and things like that. And I got so inspired to just always document because I was always around like musicians. So I think that I already knew for a long time that I wanted to do something like Sounds of the Summer, but I think that it was around like maybe 2017 that I was like, all right, this is the time that I really wanted to get it done, because I feel like I still want to hold on to that realm that the DC area has been able to have, and I feel like as times progress and how things have changed, not just politically, but just in terms of just how DC acts are able to finally make and get popular and still bring back to the community. I wanted to just show the world that I came from, essentially. So that was like kind of the motivating goal.
All right. We have Molly Brulin, CEO of One Love Massive. Is that what we call it? So, to my understanding, One Love Massive is a creative collective, and you guys also curate a lot of events, marketing, branding for local artists. So what do you think it is about artists specifically in DC that makes the area unique or separates it from other musical, markets, similar, other cities, good and bad? What do you think are the main factors that separate, or that, not separate, but make it unique?
I think first and foremost, like DC is the most intelligent, diverse, progressive city in the entire nation, like without question. And I feel that there's a lot of people with a lot of things to say because they've been around the world and back. They have a lot more experiences than the average person in a lot of other markets. And I think that really has had a positive impact, but it's such a transient city, so it's also negative because like the infrastructure for things like long-term music business infrastructure just doesn't exist because the city has changed so many times, you know? It changed significantly after the riots, and I'm not sure like we ever fully recovered from that in a sense of like a defined music business structure within the city. And so I think that also, you know, people in DC are unique. We've been influenced by Baltimore, New York, Philly, you know, where you go to some other markets and just outside the city, there's really not a whole lot going on. We're here, you know, it's not uncommon to dip up to Baltimore and go experience that, or go to New York, or do these other things. And I think that all of those experiences have shaped and influenced how we want to view our nightlife and how we want to view our community, but like in our own special way, in our own way. But I think it's just difficult because, you know, straight up the DC government is suffocating any culture and making it impossible for community events to exist, for free community events to exist. And so it's going to always take things like this building and this type of movement and this documentation of what's going on for people to be able to realize that, like, ultimately the power is with the people. People travel from all over the country to come here to get legislatures changed, and we're right here. So I think, you know, knowledge is power, and so when you have a different perspective and different information from people, you're able to do things together. So shout out to Travis for telling the story and weaving that history throughout, because I think it's really important to everybody involved, and I think all of us really, you know.
All right, I'm pretty loud, so. We got a question from the crowd? Max?
Hey, I'm Max. Travis, you talk about the Everlasting Cafe days in the documentary, and I'm interested to know what about that moment were you there, or what about it was, do you think, it seemed like that was the catalyst of what's going on now, but I'm interested to know what your perspective is on why you chose that moment to include the documentary.
Hey, what's your name again, Matt?
Max.
Okay, Max. Everlasting Life Cafe days were actually my introduction to the DMV music scene. So that has a lot of like near and dear to me. I think I started going to the shows in 2010, actually, around the Howard Homecoming days. I actually remember the very first show that I went to, and I think there was just something so freeing about being in that circuit. Like there was something like one thing that I really loved about the Everlasting Life Days is that it just felt like everyone showed love. Really. Like that was like the most important thing for me. And even if I didn't know the acts at all, everybody always clapped, everybody always showed love. There was like a certain appreciation for it. So I felt like I had to revisit that because I felt like I needed to let people know like there are people who genuinely make music in the DMV, not really with a certain thing of like, oh, I want to do this, I want to get that. It's like, I just want people to appreciate my art, and those who truly appreciate it will come out and show love and say, wow, I really like your stuff, I want to keep up with you. So I think that was, that really made a difference to me because I can't even, like I always look back at Everlasting Life Days of like, I kind of wish we still had something like that because of just I know that as time has progressed, like there are more and more acts that are more artists that are understanding of the fact that we can make it out of the DMV, but I want to still be able to say, hey, there are people who are just genuinely still trying to bring something to the community and keep it here and still inspire people in that sense. So that was my reason why.
Any other questions from the crowd? Sure.
Hi there, it's Maya. This is for everyone. So how do you go forward amid all the pushback? You know, the early closures of the metro, you know, clubs having to change their schedules, just not being many places available for us to express ourselves artistically or musically, and so on and so forth. Also, police monitoring. How do you encourage your demographic or your groups or your followers in a sense to go forward, to continue to bring back Everlasting Life Days or make something better?
Okay, so I heard somebody, I think I heard this on the radio or something, somebody had said, the truth can be hidden, you know, it can be suffocated, but it can never be like gone. Like the truth always lies, no matter what. So when it comes to you being yourself, like this music scene is something that's meant for humans. It's meant for us. So that's always going to see the light. Of course, we're going to have to weave our way left and right, just like, you know, somebody without a job. You're going to find a job if you apply yourself. This music thing exists no matter what, even if you try to, you know, extinguish it or put it underneath the rug, it's going to find its way to the light. Now, the way how we do it is simple creatives who made a venue like this, or DJ Boom of Listen Vision, who gives the opportunity for like regular citizens to have their voice heard, or like a Tony Reds who is in these, you know, certain areas of DC that pulls these artists to light, or, you know, things like that. It's not whether or not, you know, if it goes away or like, I love that question because I can go so many routes. I can go so many routes. I'm highly optimistic about the music scene, period. Everybody's different. I'm from New Jersey, but I came down here in Maryland about 5 years ago. So for a long time, I was an outsider looking in, still developing the tactics of the DMV scene. And being a DJ, I would see these clubs getting, you know, reborn, shut down. I would see the DC culture being moved to Maryland or Nova. Like the light, like it will find its way. And we have a city full of believers, and we have a city full of hungry people. We have a city full of compassionate people who understand that art can be the thing that sometimes keeps us sane. I don't know if I directly answered that question. That question feels like, you know, a round table smoke session type question where we can go on and debate about brainstorming. Love that question. But I hope I led you in the right direction to, you know, spark that thought in your mind for more avenues, more ways.
I think that the main thing is that you have to be an outlier. You have to push the envelope, but you have to play the game. And so a lot of the reasons why community events don't exist is because DCRA exists, and DCRA will shut down go-go's, they'll shut down events that they feel don't fit their scope. And so they have made a lot of really difficult hurdles to cross in order to do events. So if you wanted to do a free event for 500 people in the park, you have to get the same permit that Broccoli City has to get, or All Things Go has to get, or Fun Parade has to get. And so that's why you don't see a lot of those events. And so what it takes is actually like motivating with your peers, you know, coming up with what it is that you'd like to change, talking to your local council member, and coming up with the legislation to change that. So that things like Events DC are not the only people with a special events permit in their pocket. You know, we have to change all the little, I mean, a lot of these laws existed to make sure that people of color didn't congregate during certain periods of time. But the DC government is also, you know, was born in the 70s. And so a lot of the infrastructure is really, it's just out of tune. But there's nobody really challenging it because a lot of the people that come into town are coming for different reasons, and the local politicians are focused on different things, and there's nobody really challenging it. So if the youth gets together and identifies what it is that needs to change, if you go to your council members, if you insist on that change, if you go to those ANC meetings, you can change the legislation, and you kind of have to, because if not, they're going to make it, you know, you're going to have $5,000 to do anything in the city, and if you don't do it right, they're going to fine you even more, and so you have to change things, because as you can see, the amount of free events from, you know, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s to now have drastically reduced because it's just too expensive. And also motivated, you know what I mean? Like forming collectives, you know, if you got a buddy who's smarter at business, then like use his skills to try to wrangle a space like this and then lean on your community to make it work. But it definitely takes a village. No one person, you know, like Jamal said in the thing, like you don't have to be in the front to be, you know, part of the team. But it definitely takes a lot of people like recognizing very specific issues and then tackling them with the DC government. Because at the end of the day, you're the votes that they're looking for. Don't get it twisted. So you gotta let them know and exercise your rights.
Yeah, there was one moment that, with this one venue in particular, that I won't say their name out loud out of respect. There was one time where me and a few friends actually had a show down there. And something that caught my attention is that the community has changed a lot, and I don't think the community has really accepted the music culture along with it in the process. There was this one show that we had, and the venue was said, hey, we'll do your show, but we have a hard curfew at 10 p.m. because they won't allow music at all. It really happened. And I remember we were kind of like thrown off, like 10 p.m., like people will be coming in at 9:59. Like why is it so like early? But I think that's really one thing of just still letting the community know. And there was something that you really brought up that caught my attention where you said that just getting a free event for 500 people is like the equivalent to Broccoli City Festival. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the festival, but it's a really big venue, and I'm just thinking, wow, like it's almost like it's being like kind of pigeonholed. So it's great to still have like sessions like here, and I really appreciate the fact that you were able to open your doors, particularly for today, because I feel like I don't want the DMV art scene to get almost into like this pinhole to the point that you won't even know that it's there because it's like in the middle of the street somewhere. And I think it's still just trying to be able to try to like push back and still like bring in certain things like accessibility wise that, you know, everybody can feel like they can be a part of and they want to see genuinely more and more of. And I think that just being able to get people who are already like influencing in the area can help also as well. So then that way they see like, oh wow, there's like so many people involved. So that's my stance, and I want to hear from you.
Um, I think a lot of it comes to we gotta change consumer culture in DC. So like how people go and support, you know, beyond just supporting their friends. So it's like a multifaceted thing. It's like changing how supporters of the art, how and what they support. And as artists, creators, or curators, or producers, or whatever, like we have to have a certain level of consistency and quality and production value. And honestly, I don't think that's something that every artist considers, musician considers, like how production value adds to your own value and what you can ask for. And also how people will receive what you do. And also like the value of turning down certain things and like, and saying yes to something that might not at first seem. You know, you kind of have to have this power of discernment when it comes to establishing yourself, I suppose. I mean, and for real, none of this stuff is absolute because there's going to be different ways for everybody. It's just like be resolute and be firm in who you are as a human being, period. Your art should reflect that. And if you're diligent in your work, or just fortunate and lucky in the right place, and prepared for the opportunities, that's the main thing, like being prepared for whatever could happen. So I don't think that enough of us are fully prepared for larger opportunities because we're so used to smaller opportunities happening and like fighting for smaller opportunities, thinking that it's not a lot of resources for artists here in DC, when it actually is quite a bit of money for us to access. It's just like, you know, sharing this information with each other as we get it. We have to educate each other to fully be prepared. And I'll put it on a lot of like older artists and even artists that are like closer to my age, a couple years older than me. They've been accessing DC Commission on Arts and Humanities and all of these things like for, you know, damn near 20 years. And all you really have to do is be a DC resident for at least 2 years and you can get $10,000 to support whatever your artistic project is. Like DC is not New York, it's not LA. Like the infrastructure is not in the entertainment necessarily, but there is infrastructure in the government and in the NGOs and things like that, special events, like the bigger projects. So as an artist, if you want to live in DC and make a living, I mean, travel, but also get access to what our industry is. Our industry is bureaucracy, is government. So it's red tape to all of it, but you know, you learn a few keywords and you'll be able to access all of this shit. So that's what I encourage. That's what I'm working on. That's what I want all the artists that I consider friends or just who I support. I want to see them working on the same things. We don't even gotta be friends, but information is out there for all of us. So yeah, that's it. Like be consistent, be considerate, and be prepared. And I mean, DC, clearly I believe in the scene because I'm still here, even through like a bunch of failures on my own and failures in people, you know? I'm still here because I believe in it and I have personal family roots here, but I mean, I'm invested in it. I want to see it blossom. I've seen it grow, and like Molly said, it's changed a few times, but I mean, if you're consistent, then you can stay through the change for real. So, yeah, I don't know, that's probably all I got to say. Because it's more, we could keep going, but yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot of, I think that we can still hold on to it, and I still believe in it because the DMV scene's been around for so long, and I just want to still be able to see it still blossom, and I still want to show that not only are there people in the DMV that are starting to blossom, but there are also still people like on the ground right now still trying to build and still trying to get themselves out there, because I think that sometimes we get lost in the factor of, all right, this artist is out there, this person's on the radio, this person's on the radio, so all of them are lit and that's all that matters. It's like, no, there's like people who are still at home right now who are just having this on SoundCloud and they're just like, hey, I just want to find a venue to perform at, because I feel like they really do deserve it as much as anyone else does. Really, so that's my stance on it.
There's something golden about DC. It's not like every other city that I've been in, or any other state that I've been in. Like there's so many subcultures.
So we're just gonna have to rearrange. Just come on down this way.
There's like so many subcultures, like when it comes from like the gangsta rap to like the stripper rap to the skateboard rap to the rap rock, and I appreciate that it's not mainstream all the way, because you know it's kind of like a good piece of art where you're just going through the museum and everybody's like looking at the Mona Lisa, but you find something else that really touches you because you found it. It's because somebody referred you to it. It's because your best friends are with you while you're there. I work in the radio, and I hear the same songs every day. I mean, like you guys can tune into the radio probably like 20 minutes of your day or 30 minutes of your day. Sometimes I'm in that studio for 4 hours at a time, so I'm hearing the rotation, you know, go by, and I have to come to events like this. I have to go to U Street. I have to go downtown. I have to go uptown to at least get a relief of what I actually am, what I actually believe in. And one of you brought up a point where it kind of seems like artists can be afraid of big opportunities. A lot of artists around here are like cocky humble. It's like you're afraid of being too big, but you're very comfortable with being at the status in rap because it kind of seems like you have a leg up on everybody. And that's what DC culture kind of is. Like we're growing local legends, and sometimes that isn't enough to make you feel like you're valuable in the world that you live in. It's probably why there's no major label buildings around. We have a few managers who have great relationships with labels, like a D1 or these recording studios. But there's something, like, I'm gonna double back here. There is something golden in this underground scene that's making these legends. Like Chuck Brown, I did not know who Chuck Brown was when I was in New Jersey. While I was in New Jersey, I did not know who Chuck Brown was. Probably in the 70s or late 60s, you know, America did not know who Bob Marley was. But it took them a long time to find out the goldenness of the impact of reggae music in that small country. Now we have Go-Go in DC, and we have Chuck Brown, who is a big staple in DC music, but hasn't really impacted America like the culture in DC. Is because DC has a very rare, exclusive, like family. Like it almost seems like family. No matter how much people argue with each other or beef with each other in this small city, one thing we can agree on is that DC is more valuable to each and every one of us in here than around the world.
One thing that I'm starting to notice even more also, and why it's so important to get me, I meant to mention this earlier, but something I'm starting to notice is, as you know, like the DMV, like over the last few years, it's been like the population's been growing like constantly. And I actually had a conversation with one of my coworkers recently, and they asked me like, oh, I see you always like doing stuff in the music area, and she had been in the DMV for about, probably say like 4 or 5 years. And she's like, oh yeah, I've been seeing you doing a lot. I was like, yeah, I've been doing this and doing that. Like, what got you into it? I was like, oh, well, you know, I used to listen to like people like here, this, Wale, Tom Lizzy, and then I mentioned Chuck Brown. And she said, who's Chuck Brown? And I think still like, it was amazing to me because she had been in the area for years and had not known anything about a lot of the acts that I mentioned. So it kind of blew my mind, but then it had to be reality of like, but then at the same time, how often do we talk about it on a grand scale as well? So I think that still I think it's still good that it's still one of those things that like people still want to learn and genuinely know more about, but I think that there's still a lot more of giving that exposure to show what we have here.
I think the last part I like that is thinking about even like the context. People don't really have context for like DC music history because it's been mostly oral history. It hasn't. I mean, of course, yeah. A lot of the real stuff. I mean, go-go is the music that you have to experience like with context. Like you have to experience it live. So that shuts out a lot of people from the actual experience of go-go. I mean, even people in the area whose parents wouldn't allow them, or who just, you know, everybody in DC really isn't a go-go fan, and we'll be honest about that. I think some people may take it up and be like, yeah, I rock with go-go, especially maybe they go to college or something, and it's like, yeah, you know, a sense of identity, but, you know, we're not going to pretend like everybody is a go-go fan. Everybody was in the go-go's. I mean, and, so it's a lot of DC music history in general that's just oral history. And it hasn't been a lot of TV shows, a lot of major records coming out to capture it, to document it, as you had with, let's say, I mean, New York is too easy to say, LA is too easy to say, Houston even, you know, any of the bigger cities that kind of have a sustainable kind of thing happening. I mean, even when you talk about like LA music scene, it's not just like the city of Los Angeles, like it's the county and everybody around it that supports it. When we talk about DC, I mean, we're so like fragmented even in the area where like for the longest, you know, if you're from PG County, you couldn't say you were from DC because people from the city would call you on that. So we're so fragmented already, and I guess that's part of the reason why even DMV is the term we go with, you know. With Houston music scene, those people are from all around, like the greater Houston area. You know, with LA music scene, it's like Inglewood and Long Beach. These are separate cities in the county. You know what I'm saying? So it's not as fragmented culturally to where like, you know, it's a completely different culture between here and Baltimore, but even between here and like Waldorf or something like that. It's like, it's separations there, and with no major outlets to document all of this, then a lot of history gets left, so only a few people's stories are going to get told. But that's why a lot of artists get kind of frustrated, I think. It's a lot of missing pieces, so that's why there isn't enough education, context. You know what I'm saying? So.
I just want to say something real quick. I know we don't have a lot of people around, but I think that honestly, you know, the minds that are here are connected and involved. I think one thing that should be said is that DMV artists and creatives and influencers that are here, and a lot of them, Jamal being one, and me, you know, kind of started me on my whole entire path, and Molly, you know, and even Freeze, and it's like, I feel like these type of situations kind of really show and I guess put in full perspective what a DMV artist deals with. Because, you know, I think DMV artists, what I know of myself being an artist, may always maintain a certain level of resilience, right? And I think that with DMV artists, it can go from a high to a low immediately. Because, you know, if you're blessed enough to be able to access certain platforms and have access to certain things, you also, on the flip side, still want to kind of keep yourself grounded in what's real, you know, and what's really here. And sometimes you got situations like this. You got a handful of people that care enough to kind of sit and listen. You know, but these things are just as important as, you know, being at radio, you know, Fox News, or being at large platforms performing, because it keeps you kind of tuned in on both of those sides, both of those angles. And I think that's what makes, you know, DMV music It's because that, we all have to kind of navigate both of those areas, and we show up. You guys are here. You showed up. You know what I mean? If they, you might look, excuse my French, and some of these same people sitting here doing some epic shit in a week, and it's like over the top, but a lot of that stuff is not always as real. It's kind of like things you gotta do. I think there's a beauty to it, and that's why for me as an artist, it's like navigating those worlds and kind of wanting to be involved in both angles. And the older I get, I understand that, this is the hub for me, and where I develop all my inspiration, develop my perspective on entertainment, everything. So it'll always be that. And I think that some art people that are even themselves here, you look at like a mainstream, like a Wale, I think to a certain extent, he still navigates both of those situations and has to learn and understand them and walk them. So I think that there's a beauty in DC, like you said, there's such a beauty here where you kind of learn so much more about entertainment and so much more about walking lines than a lot of people ever have opportunity to. I'm thankful to you guys who can sit here and kind of hone in on it and kind of understand it. And I'm thankful to you guys for always tirelessly doing this whole thing and making it look good. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Any other questions before we close up?
A lot of questions. You can ask anything at this point.
I have more of a comment. Just like I've been.
You would have a comment, not a question. Take the mic.
I've been volunteering here for. I've only came here like a few days, maybe like 2 or 3 days. But in that small amount of time, I've seen a lot that has made me more positive about what I want to do as an artist, and it's possibility. But on top of that, being supported by my community, other people from the city. For a long time, I believed that if I wanted to grow as an artist, I would have to leave these. That at a certain point in time, I would hit this cap, and that to go on past that, I would have to explore other things. But a lot of the things that I've seen here have been that's changed rapidly. And I'm confident in what I'm going to do. Thank you. Thank you all for doing what you're doing. I appreciate it.
I think I understand what you're saying, because there was definitely a point in time where I felt like me as a photographer, videographer, like I'm just like, I need to go into LA, right? But I felt like LA was too far for me to go. I thought maybe I'm gonna go ahead to New York, but I don't like walking around New York. I just don't. So I've been around the scene for 7 years, like 7 years, and I think that it made me appreciate my home so much more. Like I felt like I was so itchy to just get out of the city, because I felt like that's what everybody tells you. You gotta go here, you gotta go there. But it's like, no, you just build with where you have right here. Like you have a place to live. You have people that are able to want to say, hey, if I want to go ahead and do a pop-up show, they'll come out. Like you can still do that here. And I think the thing is that we have to still reinvigorate that confidence for younger artists like yourself, where we have to say, hey, you don't have to go anywhere. Just start walking around. Like for me, I would get on days where I would just, like if I'm on an off day, I would just walk around the city, like maybe 2-3 miles, and say, oh, well, I didn't know this venue was doing shows, or I didn't know that venue was doing shows. Like I found out like so many more places around U Street where I could just say, hey, if I just want to go ahead and put my artwork up, I can do it. And I wouldn't have known that just passing by and over there. I had to actually walk those streets more to realize it. So I think that would just be one thing just to tell you, just always just keep looking out, always keep looking, even when you don't think you're looking.
No conversation. Really dope. I love DC because it keeps me like grounded. Keeps me real grounded. It keeps me passionate about my artistry. And if you were to leave DC, you would probably have to maneuver around other people's preferences. The best part about DC is that, you know, if you stay true to who you are around here, real recognizable, there's a lot of real people around here. There's a lot of passionate people about their craft, and they understand art and passion. Even if like they don't agree with your art, they understand why you're so passionate about your art. And like, sometimes that doesn't make you money. Some of the realest people that you know in your personal life probably don't have a bed to sleep on tonight. And there's artists who leave their city and leave their comfort zone that have to create something that they're not in order to get the likeliness of America. And it's sad to say, it's sad to hear that, like you always hear in mixtapes and albums that these rappers ain't real. These rappers is lying about their money. These rappers is lying about their guns. These rappers is lying about their drugs. If you come to DC with that shit, you're automatically going to get your car pulled no matter what. They're going to do the research on you. You have to be real. And sometimes that hinders us. That hinders us because we're so complacent about, you know, what we like to do, what is our passion. So when we leave the city and go to LA, we have to get management, we have to get an agency, we have to get tour managers, we have to get fake followers on Twitter so more people can follow us. That's not real. In DC, you can't do that shit. So people do contemplate about leaving DC, but there's something about this art in DC that keeps you grounded and makes you feel better about yourself no matter what you're doing or how you do it. A lot of people talk about leaving DC and never do it. And those are the people you probably are the closest with, or even you, like you know you didn't want to leave DC because you know it just doesn't feel right. We get like artists that come to the radio station. I think I had a conversation with him, Spanish guy outside, and it's like we get people coming to the station over at KYS.
We'll have a Shy Glizzy, we'll have a JIDK, we'll have a Chaz French. They have awesome records, but their shit won't get played. When Awesome hit its peak, shit was not getting played by KYS. Why? It's probably because the powers that be over the jocks, over the DJs, all their personalities, Lil broed him before the world noticed the star he actually is. There has to be a change in our administration over at these radio stations so we don't do that. So we don't, when I say little bro, I mean, when you have a little brother and you've raised this little guy and now he's more popping than you have your friends telling you how popping your little bro is, but you're like, this nigga, this is my, and then his record don't end up getting played by Big Bro. And sometimes you have to, I don't know, like Golding's Crew record is popping right now. I don't know if it's because he left and came back. I don't know if it's management, that was way beyond me. I don't know if it's the label. But that's the power of the people over our urban radio station. They're not black. They don't walk the streets of DC. They won't sit in this chair. They never shook the hand of Chuck Brown when they know they had the chance to. Me, I wish I had the chance to at least sit next to him and be a part of be a fly on the wall in the conversation. If we could like put our heads together and be a part of that process where they choose the music or where they can stop minimalizing our big talent. I don't know what the process is, but we have great minds in DC. As I said, we have the realest minds in DC. And sometimes the realest minds don't belong in corporate. But we have to be able to change our shoes once in a while. We have to be able to put on different hats once in a while. And I believe that's coming up. I believe that's coming up. I don't know when. If I knew how, it would happen. I told you I'm an optimistic person. Optimistic person.